Austin felt the deep summer heat in 2020. City streets, normally full of music, heard marching feet and chanting voices. Daily protests about racial justice swept through the Texas Capitol. Garrett Foster, 28 years old, often marched there with his fiancée, Whitney Mitchell. He carried an AK-47 style rifle openly by his side. Texas law allowed this. Foster supported the demonstrations and his right to carry the weapon. Daniel Perry, a U.S. Army sergeant, drove his car through downtown on July 25th. He worked as a rideshare driver that night. His route crossed the path of protesters moving down Congress Avenue. Perry drove his car onto the street where people marched. Accounts differ if he meant to drive into the group or turn by mistake. Protesters quickly surrounded the car. The scene grew tense. Garrett Foster walked toward the driver's side window. His rifle remained pointed down. Most witnesses agreed. A quick exchange happened between the armed man outside and the armed driver inside. Perry, from his seat, raised a handgun. He fired shots through the window. Garrett Foster was hit several times. He collapsed on the pavement. Perry drove a short distance away, then stopped his car. He called 911. He told the operator he shot a man with a rifle who approached his vehicle. Austin police arrived. Perry gave them his gun and answered questions. Garrett Foster died soon after arriving at the hospital. The investigation started amid shock and sorrow. Perry stated he shot to protect himself. He informed police. Foster lifted the rifle, making him fear for his safety. Some people nearby backed parts of Perry's story. They recalled Foster moving the gun. Others, like Whitney Mitchell, denied Foster ever aimed his rifle threateningly. They said he was shot without cause. Police looked closely at Perry's gun and Foster's rifle. They reviewed Perry's online activity. Posts and messages showed Perry held negative views of protesters. He had written comments about shooting demonstrators. This information cast doubt on his self-defense claim. A Travis County grand jury studied the case details. In July 2021, they decided Perry should face trial. He was charged with murder and deadly conduct. His trial began in April 2023. The prosecution suggested Perry disliked the protests and drove into the marchers on purpose. They showed his past online messages as evidence of ill will. Prosecutors stated Foster never raised his weapon in a threatening way. They argued Perry's use of deadly force was not justified. Perry's lawyers argued self-defense. They brought up Texas's Stand Your Ground law. The law says a person facing a deadly threat does not need to back away before using force. They described Foster approaching with the rifle as the first act of danger. The jury considered the evidence. They found Daniel Perry guilty of murder. They found him not guilty of the deadly conduct charge. A judge later gave Perry a sentence of 25 years in prison. The verdict caused an immediate response from state leadership. Texas Governor Greg Abbott declared he wanted Perry pardoned. He mentioned the state's self-defense laws. He asked the Texas Board of Pardons and Paroles for a fast review. The governor's action created controversy. Some people praised him for defending gun rights and self-protection. Others condemned the move as political interference with the jury's finding. The Board of Pardons and Paroles reviewed the case. In May 2024, the board members agreed unanimously. They recommended a full pardon for Perry. They suggested restoring all his rights, including owning guns. Governor Abbott accepted their recommendation right away. Daniel Perry was released from prison. Garrett Foster's shooting left a mark on Austin. The incident became a focal point for debates about guns, protests, and self-defense. A jury's conviction, followed by a governor's pardon, highlighted the clash of law, politics, and personal loss on that hot summer night. The event continues to raise difficult questions about justice and public safety. Story 2. The cold killing of Warren Barnes. Autumn leaves fell in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, back in October 1908. Inside a South Main Street apartment, Warren Barnes, 61, met a savage end. A friend, worried when Barnes couldn't be reached, found him. Barnes had been stabbed multiple times, the room showing signs of a desperate fight. Police arrived, searching for answers in the aftermath of violence. They collected what they could, blood spots, anything the killer might have left behind. They talked to people who knew Barnes, mapping out his final days. Joseph A. Meyer, 38 years old then, and an acquaintance of Barnes, was one of the people questioned. He gave his account of where he'd been. Nothing seemed solid enough to make an arrest. The evidence went into storage. The trail went cold. Warren Barnes's murder became an unsolved case, a file left untouched for year after year. Time passed, science advanced. DNA testing became a tool investigators could use to look back at old crimes. The Barnes case file was reopened. Investigators took out the evidence saved from that October day, the blood samples gathered from the apartment. Modern lab tests revealed Warren Barnes's DNA. They revealed something else too, the DNA of another man. This trace was not random. It belonged to someone present during the killing, someone who likely bled in the struggle. This unknown DNA sample was compared to profiles in crime databases. A name surfaced, Joseph A. Meyer. The man interviewed decades earlier was now genetically linked to the scene. Armed with this compelling new evidence, police looked again at the old reports. Joseph Meyer was arrested in June 2019, more than 30 years after the murder. He was charged with killing Warren Barnes. Meyer claimed he was innocent. His trial put modern science against the events of a distant past. Prosecutors presented the DNA results, showing Meyer had been inside the apartment when Barnes died. They may have pointed out how his old statements didn't match this new physical proof. Meyer's defense tried to raise questions about the old evidence or suggest other ways his DNA got there. In February 2023, the jury reached its verdict. Guilty. Science had reached back across the years and pointed to the killer. A few months later, Meyer received a sentence of life in prison. The crime happened in 1988, so the laws from that time meant he might ask for parole after serving around 10 years. But release was not guaranteed. The conviction brought an end to 31 years of uncertainty. For the police, it showed the results of persistent work and the impact of scientific progress. For Warren Barnes, it represented justice. Long overdue, finally delivered from a cold, silent file. Story 3. The Jodi Arias story, Murder in Mesa. The Jodi Arias story. Summer arrived in Mesa, Arizona in June 2008. In Travis Alexander's suburban house, something went terribly wrong. Friends grew worried when Travis, usually reliable, missed calls and a trip. On June 9th, they entered his home and found him dead in his shower. It was a scene of extreme violence. Police investigators faced a gruesome sight. Travis, 30, had been attacked with shocking force. He suffered nearly 30 stab wounds. His throat was cut clear across, and he'd been shot in the head. The bathroom held clues within the bloody scene. A palm print on the wall belonged to someone else. Strands of hair were found. A digital camera lay hidden in a washing machine, a clear attempt to destroy it. Technicians skillfully recovered deleted pictures from that camera. The photos mapped out June 4th. Early images showed Travis and his ex-girlfriend, Jodi Arias, 27, in intimate poses. Later pictures captured Travis hurt, perhaps dying in the shower. One photo seemed to show Arias dragging his body. The camera, intended to hide the truth, instead recorded the shift from intimacy to death. Investigators immediately focused on Jodi Arias. Their relationship had been intense and stormy. After breaking up, they still saw each other sometimes. When first contacted, Arias lied. She said she wasn't in Arizona. Then she said she hadn't seen Travis. Pressed by the evidence, her story changed again. She claimed masked intruders killed Travis and she barely escaped. Investigators checked her story. It fell apart. They tracked her movements. She rented a car in California for a trip to Utah, but made a secret detour to Mesa right around the time of the murder. Records showed she turned off her phone for hours, used cash for gas, and changed her hair color. Actions suggesting she was hiding her path. A .25 caliber pistol, the same kind used in the shooting, had been stolen weeks before from her grandparents' house, where she sometimes lived. She later admitted taking the gun. Jodi Arias was arrested in California on July 15, 2008, and returned to Arizona to face a first-degree murder charge. Prosecutors announced they would ask for the death penalty. Her trial started in early 2013 and became a media sensation, broadcast live. The prosecution presented Arias as jealous and angry because Travis was dating others. They showed the jury the photos, the DNA proof, the palm print, her different stories, the stolen gun, and the savage nature of the killing as proof of a planned attack. The defense claimed self-defense. They portrayed Arias as a victim of Travis's abuse. They said he attacked her on June 4th and she killed him in fear, her memory blurred by trauma. Arias testified for 18 days, giving explicit details about her sex life with Travis, the abuse she claimed, and her version of the killing. Some found her convincing. Many saw her testimony as manipulative and full of holes. In May 2013, the jury found Arias guilty of first-degree murder. They agreed the killing was planned. The trial then moved to the penalty stage. The jury found the murder was especially cruel, making Arias eligible for death. But they could not agree unanimously on the sentence. The judge declared a mistrial for the penalty part. A new jury was chosen for a second penalty trial. Lawyers again debated the cruelty of the crime against Arias's claims of abuse and trauma. In March 2015, the second jury deadlocked, just one vote short of choosing death. Arizona law meant the death penalty was now impossible. On April 13, 2015, the judge issued the final sentence: life in prison without any chance of release. Jodi Arias, the center of the storm, would spend the remainder of her days locked away for the violent destruction of Travis Alexander's life. Story 4. A story of brutal murder. In the quiet chill of a Wisconsin February, the ordinary rhythm of life on Stony Brook Lane in Green Bay was about to be shattered. Behind one door, Chad Theron, a young man of 25, spent time with 24-year-old Taylor Shabusness. Their night involved methamphetamine, a drug known to twist perception and fuel dark impulses. What started between them shifted into territory from which there would be no return. Violence erupted. Reports based on later findings indicate Chad was strangled. The act allegedly continued even as his life faded. Death offered no peace. In the hours that followed, the house became a place of methodical horror. Knives were taken from the kitchen. Chad's body was subjected to dismemberment. Pieces of him were separated, an act carried out over a span of hours. Attempts were made to hide the evidence of this terrible deed. Parts were concealed within the home, others placed inside a vehicle. The desecration extended further into acts performed upon the lifeless body. Morning arrived on February 23rd, pulling back the curtain on the night's ghastly secrets. Chad's own mother made the discovery. Venturing into the basement, she confronted a scene ripped from the darkest corners of imagination. Her son's head placed inside a bucket. A frantic call brought Green Bay police rushing to the address. Officers entered a scene that defied easy description, marked by profound violence. They documented the grim tableau: the head, the scattered remains, the tools used. The trail led quickly to Taylor Shabusness. She was located at her residence soon after. Officers noted what appeared to be blood staining her clothes. Taken into custody, she provided police with an account of the preceding night. Investigators learned details of the drug use, the strangulation, the deliberate dismemberment with kitchen knives, and the violation of the corpse. Her narrative outlined the sequence of horrific events. The justice system began its work. Shabusness faced charges of intentional homicide, mutilating a corpse, and sexual assault. Her defense centered on her mental condition at the time, entering a plea suggesting she was not criminally responsible because of mental disease or defect. This required the court to examine her sanity. There were periods where her fitness for trial was questioned. She received treatment before being deemed able to participate. Her instability surfaced dramatically during one court hearing when she physically attacked her own lawyer. The trial unfolded in 2 stages during the summer of 2023. First, the jury heard the stark, disturbing evidence of the crime itself: photographs from the scene, autopsy findings, and the information Shabusness had given police. The defense pointed to her mental state and the influence of drugs. The jury returned swiftly with a verdict: guilty on all counts. The second stage focused only on her mental responsibility. Experts offered differing opinions. The defense argued her mental illness meant she couldn't grasp the wrongfulness of her actions. The prosecution presented experts who believed she understood what she was doing, pointing to her efforts to hide the body as proof she knew it was wrong. The jury sided with the prosecution, finding her mentally responsible under the law. September 26, 2023, brought the final judgment. The judge, calling the crime profoundly disturbing, sentenced Taylor Shabusness to life in prison without any chance for parole. Additional prison time was added for the other charges. The sentence closed the legal chapter on a crime that left Green Bay stunned: a grim tale of drug-fueled violence, desecration, and a life brutally ended, leaving behind enduring sorrow for the victim's family.